What's going on, everyone? It's Justin at New England Capper here on Monday, December 14th, 2020. We are talking about the matchup tonight between the Baltimore Ravens and the Cleveland Browns. We're going to be talking about two guys that I think you need in your lineup tonight, and then we're also going to be giving away a few plays at the end of the video, our favorite prop of the day, and then our play on Monday Night Football. So make sure you stick around for that. I'm going to go over some sites I use to get my information from, and then hopefully this helps you. So I deal mostly with DraftKings myself. There's a few different sites I use. As you can see, the site I am on now is BetAngles. This is where I go to look for all of my props, my prop plays, my fantasy plays, who has a good ROI, and stuff like that. So my first thing I'm going to do to look at this matchup is I want to know where to get my information for passing yards, defense, stuff like that. That is going to be over here on Pro Football Reference. This gives you everything. You can highlight the two teams you're looking at. I'm looking at the Browns and the Ravens. This is team defenses. So I actually already wrote down all the stats on notes for you guys, so I'll quickly rattle them off for you. So for passing yards, the Ravens are 32nd. They allow 2,031 passing yards. They put up 2,031 passing yards. So this is the offensive side of things. So they're dead last. And then the Browns are not much ahead of them at 28th with 2,478. Passing TDs, the Ravens have 18 while the Browns have 22. The rushing yards, the Ravens are second in the league with 2,028, so they're getting it done there. The Browns are sixth at 1,893. Rushing TDs, Ravens 14, Browns 12. Really close in all these stats. So on the defensive side of things, I think is important, especially in these showdown matchups, is to know what the defenders or what the opposing team is going to be doing. So the Ravens allow the very few passing yards at 2,713. The Browns allow quite a few at 17th with 3,083. But we just learned the Ravens are 32nd in passing yards, so I wouldn't huddle too much around that of what the Browns are allowing. Passing TDs, the Ravens have allowed 17 while the Browns have allowed 25. I think if the Ravens get in the red zone, they're going to be putting it in Lamar's hands and telling him to either go to work. He's going to be hitting either Brown, Andrews, or he's going to run it in. Running it in is obviously the most reasonable option with Lamar. You know he likes to scramble. So now for rushing yards, the Browns allow 1,252 while the Ravens are 1,339. The Browns have allowed 11 rushing TDs while the Ravens have allowed 8. So all those stats and everything came from this site. This is the defensive side of things, and you can also hop over to the offensive side to look at that. So after you look at this site, you get all your information. You're like, all right, awesome. Let's look at the game. I use Action Network to look at the game spreads and the totals. So the total in this game is 45.5. So this is the spread at 3.5 in some place. I like this site because it shows me all different lines across the board. So then if we want to look at the total, we can look at the total. 45.5 is pretty standard. It looks like across. It looks like there might be a 45 kicking around there somewhere. About 45.5 is definitely the line. So then we got to pick a tournament. Most importantly, everyone knows that watches these videos, I love single entries. I think it's the best possible chance that you're putting yourself in if you don't want to max enter a contest. 20 entry maxes are another decent tournament. I did okay on those yesterday as well. But single entry tournaments, especially in Showdown, are going to be the way to go and way to angle what you need. So we picked our tournament. DraftKings, great. Here's a quick little lineup that I threw together that I obviously am going to make some changes to, but I do like it. Now we're going to look at fantasy ranks. So wide receiver, best ROI. Donovan Peoples-Jones, 5.07. That's very important. I think he could have a very good night tonight, and that is going to be one of the plays that I will give to you. And this is not the only stat that I like because of him. I think that he does get out there. I think that he will be seeing the targets a lot more. He was targeted 4 times, I believe, last game. Targeted twice in the end zone, made one of the catches and got there. He dropped the first one, I believe, in the first quarter. But I think he does have a good game here. He's cheap, and I think if you want to play him in a captain spot, it's not a bad play. I think that in showdowns, you need to play plays that people aren't all playing, or else you're going to end up with the same score and you're going to be in the same spot as them. And with that being said, I do want to mostly, for the most part, take a running approach at this matchup, whether that's playing Lamar in a captain spot, because I know he can run, I know he can throw. That's why a Q in a captain spot isn't always bad. Problem is he's probably going to be put in the captain spot in 60-65% of the lineups out there tonight, as well as Baker. But I don't love a ton of wide receivers. This is, like I said, one captain spot would probably be Donovan Jones. That's because of his price tag. If you play him in the captain spot, you can play a Lamar, you can play Baker, and you can put both Qs in there. I think J.K. Dobbins, if I'm going to choose between J.K. Dobbins and Nick Chubb, I'm going to take Nick Chubb. But I think that J.K. Dobbins has more upside because of the price tag. You can play other guys in this matchup if you play Dobbins over Chubb. But Chubb is good. He can run. That's an obvious thing. We can watch him play. He can also catch the ball on wheel routes, stuff like that. So let's look at ball distribution real quick here. Let's go down to Cleveland. So they're right actually top and bottom of each other, which is awesome. So 23% and 23%. That's Jarvis Landry, Marquise Brown. So Baltimore to them. So that's good to see. Mark Andrews is getting more looks than Hooper on tight end slot. So let's quickly take a peek at the tight end matchups here, or tight end side. Ball distribution, tight end 1. As you can see, Mark Andrews, Hooper, so 19%, 30%. So I do think that if you're going to play a passing guy, it might not be a bad idea to play Andrews. They're probably looking for him more towards in the red zone as he's a bigger guy. He's not going to be, obviously, running 55 yards deep to the end zone, catching a streaking play. But he might be worth it to have it in your lineup, as far as not in a captain spot, but at least in there somewhere if you're going to play wide receivers. This is where I think it becomes interesting, is how often are the Browns and so this way you see Nick Chubb 51%. That's huge. That is, they're giving him the ball a ton. So this makes me automatically know, okay, right here 51%, Kareem Hunt 44%, so still high, but 51%. That's my only problem with the Browns is they share the ball to both of them extremely high. It's not like a Dobbins to an Ingram. Dobbins where he's receiving 21. And then this is kind of shooting Dobbins out a few matchups, but they do get the ball to Dobbins a lot more. So I think what you need to focus on this matchup is if you do play a Nick Chubb, it's not crazy to play a Kareem Hunt, but I'm going to play a Dobbins over a Hunt because he's obviously our RB1. So if I play Nick Chubb, great. I might throw him in a captain spot in a few of my lineups. So the two fantasy plays that I like for this matchup tonight is going to be between Donovan Peoples-Jones and Nick Chubb. I do like J.K. Dobbins as well, but the two that I think that are going to be important in lineups are going to be Donovan Peoples-Jones and Nick Chubb. Let's go to props. This can also tell us a lot about the game. Prop Analyzer, it's right on Bet Angles, and for those that don't know, Bet Angles is completely free. So Nick Chubb, see props. Perfect. See, look how easy that is, and it pops up all his props right here on the side for us. So over under 9.5 receiving yards, I think he'll have over 9.5 receiving yards. Over under 93.5 total yards, I think he's going to have over. So he's over on all of his fantasy points here. Over PPR, over under 83.5 rushing yards. I think he's going to go under on his rushing yards, which is interesting. Over under 17.5 rushing attempts. They do think he takes over 17 attempts. And then rushing touchdowns. They think he's going to get in the touchdowns at least once. So they think he's going to get in there once. Obviously, rating is 1, so it's not very high. Whereas they think over 9.5 receiving yards, rating is 17. Now let's look at Lamar's props. This can tell us a lot about him as well. They think he's going to go under his passing yards. They think he's going to go under his total yards. They think he's going to go over his rushing yards. Rating's a 40. So rating 103 on under passing yards. That is interesting. So they really think that he's going to be under on his passing yards. So I'm going to make a note real quick. Again, I write everything down. I'm old school. So I'm just going to make a note that says Jackson under 209.5 pass yards. So that's good to know. So that when I look at this, I go, okay, well, the thing's going to go over is 19.5. Important to know. Over 1.5 passing touchdowns. Interesting. Over 2.5 total touchdowns. So they think also that Jackson's going to go over 2.5 total touchdowns. 2.5 total touchdowns. So that's interesting to see. So now let's take a peek at Baker, see what they're thinking for him. So they think he goes over on his passing yards. So Baker over 233.5 pass yards. That's interesting. With a very high rating as well. Over under 240.5 total yards. They think he goes over 240 total yards too. Over under 1.5 passing touchdowns. They think he goes over. So they think he finds the end zone twice in the air. Over 1.5 rushing attempts. Interesting. Over under 6.5 rushing yards. They think he goes under on the yards. 2.5 total touchdowns. They think he goes over. So they think that the rating's not very high, obviously, but they think he's going to go over under 1.5 passing touchdowns. So they think he goes over 2.5 total touchdowns. So if you're looking at this like I am, and you're saying, okay, well, if you say that they're getting 3 touchdowns apiece, no, that's 7, 14, 21, but that's just from them, possibly an over on the game. But over under 2.5, they think he goes over 2.5 total touchdowns. So next one I want to look at is I'm going to look at Jarvis Landry, Marquise Brown, and J.K. Dobbins. I want to see J.K. Dobbins, though. So they think J.K. Dobbins is over. Not very any high ratings here, though. So this is what you want to pay attention to. So very low ratings on J.K. Dobbins. So they do think he gets a rushing touchdown. It's a good Jarvis Landry, what they think. Ratings an 8 for him. So let's look at Marquise Brown. Under on everything, over on his fantasy points, but they think he goes under on his yards. Over, no touchdown or no TD props here. So let's look at Andrews. Rating a 30 on 48.5 total yards. They think he goes under, and pushes on receiving touchdowns. So I think after looking at this, you're gonna want, that's why stuff like this is good to see, is they think that QBs are gonna have 2 good showings. So they think that Lamar is gonna be under on his passing yards, under on his total yards. So they're leaning Baker in this matchup, but they do think that he is going to get over 1.5 passing touchdowns and over 2.5 total touchdowns, which is important. Again, low ratings, but they still believe it. So it could be important to make note that maybe you want a Lamar and a Baker. And I think that if you can fit Lamar and a Baker in there, that it could be a good matchup. I think it's important, obviously, if you could take these top 4 guys and fit them in a lineup, to go ahead and do it. But the chances of you fitting that with a reasonable price tag and having not a random guy just filling up random slots, that it could be important. So with that being said, I just got to give away the 2 plays tonight. My personal take on this matchup tonight is Ravens money line or Ravens -2.5. I like both of those plays there. I think the Ravens come out on top in this matchup. I think the Browns did have a good week last week. There's no denying that, but I think the Ravens are just a better team. The Ravens have a great pass defense. And I just think that they can totally shut down this Browns wide receiver core. I think that the run is what's going to be hard to stop for them. So with that being said, the only thing I have to do is give away a prop, and my prop on the day that I personally like, and I can see what it looks like if they have him up here. I don't know if they will. Yeah, they do not have him up here, I don't believe. But I personally like Donovan Peoples-Jones over 1.5 receptions. So Donovan Peoples-Jones over 1.5 receptions. I think that they shut down the pass, as I mentioned, but I think that Donovan Peoples-Jones will have 2 receptions. I don't know that he will really get anywhere. I don't know if it's going to be a bomb over the top, but I do think he has over 1.5 receptions. He had like 4 targets last week. 2 of them were in the end zone. He dropped 1. So I do like Donovan Peoples-Jones here. I think that if there's going to be a wide receiver that's going to pop out for them, it will be him. So that being said, that's all I got for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed. Thank you for tuning in. If you have any questions, obviously you can reach out Instagram or on here. With that being said, that's all I got. And thank you guys for tuning in. Peace.